Hello, everyone. So, as we know, and we can see it on our streets, that the streets of Ireland have become a lot more dangerous. The streets of every city has become a lot more dangerous. Crime is rampant. And when people do get caught for crimes, they get let off by the judges, etc. Unless you don't pay your TV license, you won't get off with that. But long story short, the days of people trusting the system, the justice system, and on Garda Síochána are long gone and done. What I mean by that is the Gardaí, for the last few years, have shown themselves up completely. And, we see this in the Irish Independent yesterday, and they talk about those thousands of Garda applicants drop out before even taking the test to become a member of Garda Síochána. And hundreds of them fail to turn up for interviews, and as you know, there's a critical lack of Gardaí, particularly in County Cavan. And in other places too, there's a lot of Gardaí have resigned, a lot have retired, and there's pretty much nobody to replace them in a lot of cases. And the Gardaí have shown themselves up, and particularly in the last few years, they've shown themselves up in flipping fields. And there's loads of people, not even in relation to crimes, etc., not being solved and people not being caught. And the judges letting them off with basically everything, basically, unless you don't pay your TV license or you misgender somebody, you won't get off with that, unfortunately, in modern Ireland. But this is the thing, that basically, we've seen the Gaudi bussing people from Timbuktu, etc., to come in here in the middle of the night with no passports. We've seen the Gaudi push people out of the way with batons beating up old women, pepper spray, and people beating up old people and women and children. But again, they won't beat up the people that are causing the real trouble, that are burgling people's houses in the middle of the night, that are causing chaos in our towns and our villages, drug dealing. There's no such thing as a baton being produced to hit them people. But if you dare protest for your community, why people being bussed in and why you're not getting housing support, why you're not being looked after as an Irish citizen, and somebody from Somaliland can come in here in the middle of the night, a man, and get everything basically handed to them. It doesn't make any sense, and it causes division in society. And of course, the Gaudi, that's not their job. I don't remember reading that the Gaudi are there to bust people in the middle of the night. I don't remember that. They're there to keep law and order. They're there to keep the streets safe for people to walk the streets. And unfortunately, they're not doing a good job in that. And I don't blame all the Gaudi for it. It's the court system that has a bit of the blame for that. I don't blame them, the only guard on the street, for that. Because the courts let them off with it. They get out the next day and they do the same thing again. And of course, we see with the recent protests, particularly, a lot of people are very, very annoyed with the Gaudi beating up farmers, etc. And basically becoming the government's mouthpiece in a way too, because they listen to whatever the government tell them to do, and that wasn't what the Gaudi were inceptionalized to do. Keep us with the peace. They're supposed to be neutral, I suppose, but they pretty much take orders from the government, which is probably not. You should be looking at the constitution, what the constitution says. And we have to be honest, that's what's happening. But there's real crookery going on in Let's the House. You think the Gaudi would be interested in looking into that and maybe investigating that, and even take this up with Jeffrey Epstein's links to Ireland. The Gaudi don't want to know anything about that. But if you dare say anything online about anything at all, we'll follow you up, we'll find you. But yeah, the Gaudi have turned into a joke, to be totally honest, and especially the uniforms nowadays. And I know everybody says not the uniforms. Years ago, the Gaudi uniform looked respectful. At least you looked respectful, and people put a bit of fear into people too if they cause trouble. Nowadays, the Gaudi are dressed up, I don't know what, with baseball caps and stuff. It's not respectful. The old Gaudi uniform used to be a lot more respectful. It used to be a lot more fearful too, in putting the fear of God into people. But nowadays, the Gaudi are a joke. They really are in a lot of cases. And it's an unfortunate thing to say that, because Garda Síochána throughout the centuries too, throughout the years, may I say, done a good service to the state during the Troubles, etc. Kept a lot of people safe. A lot of Gaudi give their lives to protect members of the public. There was one guard particularly, I think we remember this back a few years ago, he stopped members of the public from going onto a bridge and was swept away by a flood. He gave his life to save members of the public, and it was often Gaudi too that done that to protect members of the public. So they're not saying that there's no bravery in Garda Síochána or anything. That's not even up for negotiation. There's people in the Garda Síochána, as we've seen with that guard too, giving the loan of the bicycle to an elderly man doing a good deed. You could argue he didn't fill up the paperwork, but still, it's not a great look in the Garda Síochána when a guard was doing a good deed for a man. I don't know reward for him, just to help a man out in the community. Because again, as a Garda, you're there to serve and protect the community, along with serve the community. And he was doing that. And again, it was a bicycle that was lying there for years. It was only about a 50-year worth of a bicycle. It wasn't like he was robbing the bank or anything with it. But they made a big deal out of it. And, it just goes to show you that Garda Síochána has become a joke of an organisation. Because years ago, the Gaudi would say, oh, sure, that's only, we're not past much remarks on it. But they made a big fucking deal over it. And a lot of people have lost trust in the Garda because seeing things like that when the Garda actually tried to do good and try and help somebody out and get suspended, and he could end up in prison. They wanted to put him in prison for it. Like, it's utterly ridiculous. And then there's people going out and stabbing people in the middle of the street and they get off with fully suspended sentences. And we have Judge Nolan in the High Court letting off every paedophile left, right and centre. And then if you're a guard that tries to help out a member of the community, and again the message that was sent out by that, just to say, is that it was sent out from Garda headquarters from Drew Howes. Drew Howes is not there now anymore, but the Garda infrastructure hasn't changed. We have a Canadian woman now that's deputy commissioner. We at least have a man that's in as a commissioner now, as a member from Garda. At least he was there for the majority of life in Garda Síochána. But this is the thing, everybody who's seen that incident was like that the Garda become a very different organisation. And we all remember Maurice McCabe and John Wilson and etc. Blowing the whistle on what was happening with the penalty points and other stuff that was happening in the Garda Síochána. And we all remember that, and still probably happening to this day. Maybe not to the extent it was back then, but still it's happening to this day. And the Garda have lost the trust, and that's the simple that they've lost the trust of the Irish people. And particularly when we see crime rampant, and the justice system is a joke too. I even know of people that things were stolen. There's one man that I know of. It wasn't that much for a thing that was stolen, but he had something anyway in his backpack. It was something like, I can't remember what exactly it was some kind of technology. Remember that? It was like a tablet, though, a small tablet thing, or a watch, kind of a digital watch. I think it was something like that. It was in his bag, and somebody nicked it out of it. It was only about 100 and something euro, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not bothered reporting it to the Gardaí." And that man, he went out and spent 100 and something euro to buy that. And I said to him, did he report it to the Gardaí? Did the Gardaí look into it? Because again, this happened in the cafe. There would clearly be CCTV evidence. And as he said, it wouldn't be worth my while. Because, first of all, the Gardaí would take it to Christmas, probably to get the person. And then when they do get the person, they go up to court and he'd be let off again. And basically, it'd be not worth anybody's effort to go and, get this person because they'd be let off with it. And that fellow had to go out and buy a new one out of his own pocket. But that just goes to show you there's many people. Take for example, there's been cases in Cavan. I just go through this. There's been cases in Cavan before, back 3 or 4 years ago, where people's houses were robbed. Hundreds of euros. In one case, thousands of euros taken in property and in money. And they still didn't go to the Gardaí because they said it wasn't worth their effort to go to the Gardaí to fill out reports, to fill in given statements, to give this and give that and give the other. And as they said, it wouldn't be worth their effort. And there was one case particularly, I think it was nearly 3,000 that was stolen out of somebody's houses in property and in money. And it was 3,000 something that was stolen. And they didn't go to the Gardaí. You think they would have went to the Gardaí, but as they said, it wasn't worth their while. And that's the that it wasn't worth their while because the Gardaí come out, they take a statement, and that'll be the end of it. And maybe they would get the person, maybe, but not likely. But even if they did get the person, they would get off with a fully suspended sentence, and that'll be it, basically. So it's not worth their time. So a lot of people have lost trust in even reporting cases to the Gardaí, take for example, in crimes and stuff. People have lost trust. And even, to be totally honest, unless something seriously happened to me, very unlikely, if something happened to me, very unlikely I would go to the Gardaí to report it because I wouldn't be bothered to deal with the courts and to go to court about it and to listen to a judge talk rubbish. Because that's what would happen. I wouldn't be worth my time because it'd be too much effort for little to know that but the judge would let him off with a fully suspended sentence if somebody did do some harm. And that's the sad reality, that a lot of people are just not bothered to report things to Garda Síochána anymore because there's no justice. There's no justice in it, and people just are fed up and sick and tired of the whole system in relation to this. But yeah, so let me know what you think. Do you trust the Gardaí? Because I do think they've lost a lot of trust. And I think people feel, and particularly when you go around local towns and villages nowadays, people have lost trust. People don't see the Gardaí as much. Even when I was younger, you seen the Gardaí out and about. Nowadays you don't see the Gardaí out and about. And the whole institution of Garda Síochána in the last 20 years has changed. That it's nearly against the people, to be totally honest, nowadays than with the people. Because it seems to be protecting the people that are doing harm to society. Politicians, etc. We have people like that are criminals, they're more criminals than the people doing the crimes, but they're protecting them and they're protecting people that are causing trouble and stuff, and that's as simple as that. So it's I don't know, it's a kind of 50-50, but to be totally honest, I wanted to be a guard actually when I was younger, when I was really young. I'm thankful I didn't, because I would have resigned probably a long time ago anyway at this stage. But I couldn't be a member for Garda Síochána to solve this government, to solve them, because that's what you're doing. You're solving the government. You're not solving the people. You're solving the government. And I would say to any member from Garda a lot of them feel disenfranchised and feel forgotten about. The best thing to do is to resign. That's to be totally honest, because it's not a job worth doing, as they say. It's a job worth solving the government. That's what it is. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more and bye.